All right, vlog number 3, and I'm just back from a very short vacation as I go full tilt into con season, as I get ready for the con crunch leading into Dragon Con. So where am I today? Well, I left a few pieces printing, and it has given me a grand total of about 33 pieces of the armor printed. What percentage of the armor is that? I really don't know in terms of like number of parts. And I am printing them one at a time to avoid stringing and other issues, failures and things like that. But I do have most of the large and complex pieces printed. So I've got things like this under back piece that goes under the flaps. I have one of the shoulder bells. I've got stomach pieces. And these are just the ones out of my annealed box. Over here on the table here, I've got pieces annealing in here, including one of the thigh pieces. I've got back flaps ready to go. I wanted to show you this one. So like I said, I left things going as I was on vacation. I've got lots of cameras around the garage here, and of course I can cut everything off remotely. I've got fire. Anyway, it's all safe. I left everything running though. 2 out of the 3 long, big prints that I left running turned out absolutely fantastic, including that thigh piece that's in there and one of those detail pieces that go behind my shoulder. But not everything goes to plan, and right here, this was on one of my printers, and it looked like to me that one of the spools was getting hung up. Occasionally, that happens. This wasn't actually like a problem with the spool. This was probably more a problem with the way I handled the spool. What we got here was vast under extrusion as it was trying to pull the filament pretty hard and failing. And so as we see here, this one did not turn out. And anyway, it's printing right here on the V400, the FLSUN V400, and it is looking beautiful on this printer now. But this is what an under extruded print sounds like. It is an absolute disaster. It just comes right apart. So I wanted to do that on camera because that's fun, right? But this is an under extruded nylon print. It's no tougher than any other print if that's what happens to it. So anyway, that was the only piece that failed. Everything else turned out great. So what am I working on right now besides just running these things one after another and getting everything printed? Well, of course, I'm annealing as I go. I, of course, have a backup spool that I throw in here when I'm worried that I'm about to dry one of these out. Or excuse me, one of them's about to get wet or something. I need to switch it out. So let's go ahead and give you an update on that. On the dry boxes, they are working fantastic. So I told you I wasn't sure exactly how they were going to go, whether that was going to work for me or not, but the dry boxes have been wonderful. So whether it's a combination of the repeated drying that I've been doing where, a second it starts to sort of mess up on me, I throw it back in here and I dry it out again, and then I print with it and I dry it out again. I think some of that is making the filament more resilient, or just getting it drier and drier and drier to its core, and that is making it last longer. As well as, again, these dry boxes, it made a huge difference to put that extra layer of insulation on it to keep out the moisture and to keep in the heat. It's really been a good solution to my problem. You may have seen I have 2 toasters now. I don't remember if I mentioned that in the last video. I've got 2 toasters now where I can dry and anneal going on. I did find out I can't run 2 of these off of the same surge protector because they will trip it. And so now I have another cord running over there, and they're on 2 separate circuits, not a problem. They are heating up my garage quite a bit. I don't know what this is going to end up costing me in electricity bills, so I don't recommend this if you're thinking about doing it. A couple of other things. I am sizing and working on some of the more difficult parts of the armor now that I've sized, all the main components that I'm wearing. I have the hands here. Hands are very difficult for me because I want a hand that's functional. I don't want to just print it at whatever size fits and go with it. So I've been playing with different scales here. This is the hand that comes with the Mark 46, 47 V2 from Do 3D. And so I actually, 100% is really good on my hand, but I couldn't really close it. So I ended up going, I think, I'll have to double check my scaling here. I think it's about 105% or 110% in the width though, in whatever direction you want to call this. Depth. but now I can move my fingers, I can close my hand, and I believe I have enough room now to put in my electronics. I actually resized this hole to hold the electronics, the LEDs that I use for my palm that I've been playing with, you've seen in other videos before. So I think this is about ready to be printed. I do plan on printing the hands and other detailed parts that I really don't want to have to spend a whole lot of time sanding down. I plan on printing those on the Sonic Mega 8K from Frozen, my favorite resin printer, in some engineering grade resin. So the last thing I want to get to in this video is what I promised you in the last video, which is showing how this stuff sands. I have several components that have already been printed and annealed. They're just test pieces. They're not part of my final batch that I've already put aside here. These are test pieces that I've set aside just for this process of kind of testing sanding, testing hand sanding, testing mechanical sanding. I've got a palm sander. We're going to give that a shot. I'm going to move the camera over there. Well, let's do that first. And yeah, let's head over to the other side of the garage. All right, as I mentioned, I have like 3 test pieces here of varying quality here. Some of them look great. Some of them look a little rougher, but anyway, I've got 3 different pieces here of varying qualities, and these have all been annealed, so they are hardened and ready to sand. So how am I sanding them? Well, I've got a couple of options on the table here. I have a hand sander. This is just a reciprocating, I think they call it, sander. Yeah, they call this a corner cat or a mouse, depending on which brand. These first ones I've got on here are 120 grit, so we're just going to give them a good start. And I've got some finer ones here. I've got an 80, of course. I got a 220. And then I also have hand sanding papers of various grit, everything from 120, 220, and 320. Again, we're just going to knock it down here. We're going to assume if we can get it down where it starts smoothing out, we'll be able to get it from there, because then things like the primers and stuff take over. We also have this really cool tiny detail sander that I picked up off of Amazon. Link in the description as well. This is called a Micro Lux sander, and it is really cool. It's got these little plastic tips and these little sticky sanding pads, again, of various grips that I can give a shot when I need to get in somewhere and I don't want to do it by hand. So let me get on this. Now, anytime you're sanding, I think you should be wearing the proper PPE, the personal protective equipment. But when you're sanding anything with carbon fiber in, you need to be particularly careful. So I have breathing protection, and I have a brand new set of goggles for some eye protection. Eye protection, again, protect yourself. It's up to you. I like the eye protection because I don't want any of this in my eyes, particularly since I wear contacts. So let me give this a shot. Of course, I'm going to start out with the hand sanding, with the machine sanding. We're going to see how that goes. Again, I can do this on different pieces here. See how it goes. I will show you the results in a few minutes. All right, just to get a good idea how these turned out, I wanted to put a couple of coats of the Duplicolor Automotive Filler Primer on here. This is just to get a good idea of what it would look like if I were to finish it right now and how well the sanding actually did. So now I'm going to do a quick top sanding with like a 320 grit with hand sanding, and then we'll see how they look. All right, all done with the sanding of these parts, and I have to say I'm pretty happy with them. I spent very little time on these parts, and overall, They look very good. And as I can see, and hopefully you could see on the camera, as I was sanding this material, I could see the dust coming off. So it was definitely taking away the material. It was actually pretty easy to sand, a lot easier to sand than some of the PLAs that I've done in the past, because it wasn't gunking up my sandpaper at all. And it was also just coming off the way I expected it to. So the top layer comes off. This is very smooth to touch. You can see some imperfections on here. Again, I didn't spend a whole lot of time on these two parts. And if I was doing this, I would also be doing this in shifts where I would be sanding a part, priming a part, bringing it back. And so there would be kind of a cycle here, as opposed to these just two small parts, which took a little bit longer because I was waiting on drying time and stuff like that. But overall, I'm very happy with how this is turning out. I'm happy with how this material is printing and how the material is sanding and finishing. And this wasn't my full finishing process. I didn't pull out any of the putties or any of the Bondo products that I normally use. This was just sanding with the electric sander, the hand sandpaper, and then doing a little bit of the filler primer. So I didn't do any of the big gap filling or any of the big smoothing that I would have normally done for any of the trouble areas. So again, happy with this. It shows that nylon carbon fiber is a good material for this. And as I go through the finishing process and the final pieces, as opposed to these test pieces, you'll see more of my process and more of what these look like when they're actually finished and painted. Thank you, as always, for watching these vlogs. I've got a whole lot more of these to do in a very short time to do them, so I hope you're enjoying them. Please leave a comment down below if there's anything that I haven't covered fully here that you would like to see more of. Please subscribe to the channel so that you'll get notified. Ring the little bell, of course. You'll get notified when I post more of these. Thank you again for your time and attention all the way to the end of this video. I'm Chris, this is Kersey Fabrications, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.